Hey you nines, it's Mr. CHEN-KE here. I just wanted to make a short video today walking you guys through our lesson. So today's lesson is going to be divided into two parts. Part number one is going to essentially focus on reviewing and revising what we've learnt this week in English. And if you've got some time later on today, part two of the lesson will be a little bit of time for you to catch up on any activities and tasks that you have not completed yet. So what are we actually going to be doing today? Well, we're going to be reviewing our learning of key film techniques, specifically shot sizes, camera angles, lighting and color. By the end of today's lesson, all of you guys should have completed a quiz which will assess your current understanding of key film techniques. I'll show you guys where to go to find that quiz in a moment. And you're also going to analyze shot size, camera angles, lighting and color in a couple of stills that I've provided you that I've essentially taken from the clips that we've used to analyze this week. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a guided analysis with you guys, which will hopefully give you all a bit of an indication of the amount of detail I'm looking for in your activities and tasks this week. So what have we actually covered this week? So we started off this week by viewing that video from the YouTube channel Studio Binder, which covered shot sizes. So to give you guys a bit of a refresher, shot size refers to how much of the setting or the subject, usually the actor, is displayed within a film. So another way to think of shot size is how close the camera is to the subject who's being filmed. So we learnt about establishing shots, master shots, wide shots, full shots, medium full shots, which is also referred to as the cowboy shot, medium shots, medium close-up shots, close-ups, and extreme close-ups. So if you need a refresher on those different types of shot sizes, make sure you're referring back to that note-taking table that you did on Monday and yesterday in regards to that Studio Binder video. I find that there are a lot of shot sizes to remember, so visual cheat sheets like this one here are really useful. Not just in kind of giving you guys a refresher on what the different shot sizes are, but they're also really useful because it's good to have a bit of a visual aid next to you whenever you're doing film analysis. So I'd almost recommend, if you can, print out a copy of this cheat sheet or just have it next to you whenever you're analysing a scene or a still from a film. So definitely use this cheat sheet as a little bit of a guide. We also learned about camera angles, and from the data that I collected from your pre-tests in the very first week of this unit based on film techniques, all of you guys actually demonstrated a really solid understanding of camera angles. So we've got high angle shots, low angle shots, eye level shots, bird's eye view, or what we call the overshot, and its opposite, the undershot, when you shoot a subject from directly beneath them. If you do need a bit of a refresher on camera shots, camera angles, apologies, make sure you refer back to that worksheet we did this week as well. We also looked at lighting yesterday, and lighting is perhaps one of the more challenging aspects of film analysis. Some of you guys might have some experience working with lighting in a cinematic context, especially if you do electives at school like media studies or viscom or VCD, but for a lot of you guys, lighting is a foreign concept, and that's okay. We're not expecting you guys to analyze really complicated lighting techniques and color palettes and whatnot for this upcoming Truman Show CAT. We just want you guys to get an understanding of, one, what is lighting and what are some of the fundamental lighting techniques that cinematographers and directors use, but also we want you guys to get an understanding of why lighting is so important to the cinematic experience. So we know that lighting is really important to a film because it creates visual mood, an emotional atmosphere, and also a sense of meaning for the audience. And literally every single process of filmmaking is affected by lighting, and vice versa as well. So when you're dressing a film set, so you're designing the set, or you're blocking the actors, telling the actors where to stand and how to position themselves within a scene, that all affects the way you light a scene. So it's super important to have a really strong lighting team on a film set. So this week we learned about 6 different types of lighting. cinematic lighting techniques, I should say. So we got high key lighting, which is sort of characterized by this kind of flat, even range of light and color in a scene. So you'll notice from this image, there are little to no shadows. It's quite a bright image. It's quite colorful. You've got these kind of white tones. And the mood of high key lighting scenes is normally quite uplifting, quite positive. On the flip side, we've got low key lighting, and this is a still from Prisoners, which is a movie starring Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. It's directed by a Canadian director called Denis Villeneuve, and he's sort of famous for creating these really atmospheric, darkly lit, really gritty, bleak films. So you'll notice that in low-key lighting, there are really significant and obvious contrasts between light and dark, and there's some quite significant shadows. So whenever you sort of see dark tones, dark colors, that contrast between light and dark, but also really heavy, harsh shadows, most of the time that's created through low-key lighting techniques. And it creates a sort of gritty, dark, grimy, but most importantly, a dramatic mood and atmosphere. The third and fourth lighting techniques that we looked at this week were hard versus soft lighting. So hard lighting is an aesthetic where there are harsh shadows that draw attention to a specific actor or a specific part of a scene, whereas soft lighting is an aesthetic with little to no harsh shadows at all, and it's usually a bright image, but evenly balanced, I should say. So if you look at the contrast there between the hard sunlight and the soft sunlight, I feel like that's a really good visual representation of the difference between hard and soft lighting. Notice on the hard sunlight image, the shadow that's created through the reflection of the sunlight. And notice on the soft sunlight that essentially all the shadows have been edited out in post-production. We also learned about natural lighting. So this is a still from The Notebook, which is probably the most famous romantic film of our generation. Here you can see that it's still a pretty well lit scene. You could argue that this is possibly high key lighting, but I think most importantly, the primary source of light in this image is actually natural. It's just from the light from the sun and the reflections through the lake that they're rowing through. The lighting is practically all natural. So it's that's where the natural lighting or naturalistic lighting gets its name from. So when you shoot a scene and you are literally using the light that's available to you at the location where you're shooting, that's natural lighting. We've also got, last but not least, backlighting. This is a scene from Shutter Island. So you got Leo DiCaprio there, and you'll notice that the light comes from behind Leonardo here. So backlighting is essentially a technique where you place a light behind an actor and you raise it or elevate it slightly, and then that sort of creates the effect you see on your screen now. Backlighting is used essentially to create more definitive lines and shapes to make characters or make objects seem more three-dimensional, but also to separate the subject from the background, so creating a more distinct image. 3-point lighting we also looked at briefly yesterday. This diagram was in the slides from yesterday. And it's the basic cinematic setup of lighting. So you have an actor, you have a camera or something filming them from in front. And then you've got the key light on the left, which is the primary source of light. So this is usually the most intense and the strongest direct light source in the film. And its primary job is to illuminate the subject or the actor. On the other side of the camera, you've got the fill light. So when you just shine a key light on someone's face, for example, that creates one side of your face is quite well lit and the other side is completely dark, so that creates really harsh shadows. The job of the fill light primarily is to literally fill in the light or fill in the shadows. So, a fill light sort of creates a more evenly lit image and removes the shadows that are caused if you only have a key light. And then obviously, like we talked about just then, you've got the backlight at the back, which is also called placed at an angle called a kicker, and it separates the actor or the object from the background and creates more distinctive lines and images. Last but not least, this week we looked at colour. Now, all of us have some experience with analysing colour because colours are pretty much a part of our everyday lives. Whether you guys are conscious of it or not, colours elicit certain emotions and have a psychological impact on the viewer. And they are big creators of mood and atmosphere. So in films, colour is emphasised through costumes, so what the actors are wearing, the design of the set, the colours of the location, and also the lighting. So there are three elements of colour. Hue, which literally refers to the colours itself. So a lot of films are or have monochromatic hues or colour schemes, so they essentially are all the same colour. A lot of films are what we call analogous films, analogous or have analogous colour schemes, apologies. So the colours they use in these sorts of films are all similar. So you might have reds and oranges because they're quite similar and alike on the colour wheel. We also learnt about the concept of saturation. So that's how intense a colour is. So you know when you go on Instagram, you have those different filters. Some of those filters make the colours in your image seem more intense and brighter. Some of those filters will actually desaturate your image and make them appear sort of washed out and even pale sometimes. And the last element of colour that we looked at this week was brightness. So how bright or how dark the colours in a film are. It's also really important to consider the connotations of colours. So think back to our unit on persuasive language. We know that connotations are essentially the ideas or the feelings and emotions that a word, or in this case a colour, invokes in us. So we know that darker colours like red and black often suggest things like passion, danger, love, evil. Whereas lighter colours like white and yellow suggest purity and innocence. And filmmakers use colours sometimes to represent characters and their feelings as well. For example, the image you can see on the screen right now is from a film by Spike Jonze called Her, and the protagonist is searching for romance and love in a digital age. And you'll notice that he's wearing a very saturated, brightly coloured red shirt, and he's also got his dating app on the screen, which is also this kind of reddish orange hue. And that's obviously representing his search for love, connection, and romance. So a lot of filmmakers will play on the connotations of colours. So your job now is to head over to our Google Classroom page and have a go at the quiz that I've made on the platform Quizzes. So I'll just leave the slideshow for a quick moment. I'll use my 9E1 class as an example. So the very first post on our Google Classroom stream, you can click either the mobile link if you want to do the quiz on your phone, or on the web link if you're working on an iPad or a laptop device. And when you click on these links, it's going to take you to a quiz based on what we've learnt this week. So you're going to be assessed on your understanding of lighting, color elements, shot sizes, and camera angles. So make sure you do that after you finish watching this video. Okie dokie. So I thought I'd also just give you guys a bit of a guided analysis of lighting and color. So one of your activities yesterday was to watch the trailer to Thor Ragnarok, which is a Marvel film, and Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, which is a DC Comics film. And obviously that's the age-old debate, right? Which one's better, Marvel or DC? Everyone has sort of differing opinions on this. I am actually personally a DC fan. It doesn't mean that I think DC movies are better than the Marvel movies. I actually, well, most of the recent Marvel movies I think are significantly better than the DC Comics movies. But I personally, my taste in film and literature and art in general, I sort of like the dark, grimy, gritty style of cinema, and I think DC does that a little bit better than Marvel. With that being said, some of the recent DC films were terrible, but I digress. So your job was to watch the trailer for Thor Ragnarok, and then also watch the trailer for Batman vs Superman. And then your job was to answer the following three questions. So what are the major differences in lighting and colour between the two trailers? Number two, how does the lighting and colour of each film trailer create a distinct mood? And number three, based on the trailers, which film did you find more appealing or more attractive, and why? So I thought what I'd do is just walk you guys through a guided analysis of some of the stills from the trailer. So I've actually gone to both trailers and I've just screenshotted and created some stills of some key frames in the trailers. And I thought I'd sort of talk you through how I'd go about analysing these stills from the trailers in regards to lighting and colour. So we'll start off with Thor Ragnarok. And even if you look at the movie poster, it is very, very colourful. You've got these reddish, orange, yellow, golden hues, and also this dark green hue. So off the bat, we know that this movie is going to have quite a colourful palette. So this is a screenshot from the trailer. You can see we've got our heroes in the foreground, so closest to the camera. You've got Loki in the green cape, you've got the Hulk, you've got Thor, and then you've got Hela, the antagonist, in the sort of background, standing furthest away. But if you look at the way this scene is set up in terms of lighting, it's actually very bright. You'll notice that there are sort of these golden hues in the background, and there aren't many distinctive or harsh shadows. So for a face-off scene between the good guys and the bad guys, which is supposed to be very dramatic, the lighting in this scene is actually quite well lit. So I would almost describe this as high-key lighting, because it's evenly lit, there are sort of very bright, almost white tones, and there are no harsh or distinctive shadows. Similarly, we've got in the background here these really bright, almost neon colours. You've got this sort of neon green, neon orange / reddish colour. And obviously look at that reflection of the sword there, in the royal blue cape. We can already see that the colour scheme and the tones and the warmness of the lighting is very Marvel-like, isn't it? It's quite uplifting and exciting. We've got Loki and Thor here. Again, not many distinctive shadows. Still quite well lit and quite colourful. Got Loki here as well. Notice the dark green colour schemes that are coming through. And yes, there is a little bit of a shadow on the left side of Tom Hiddleston's face, but it's not really a distinctive shadow. This still itself is still actually quite well lit. There are still these sort of warm, dark green tones, and through the gap in that window, some natural sunlight. So it is still sort of soft lighting and high-key lighting. And I thought it was funny, the only time where you've got this sort of dark colour scheme is through the antagonist, Hela, the bad woman in the film. So she wears sort of this jet black costume, and she's got dark eyeshadow and jet black hair. So she's the only real prominent example of darkness and I guess evilness in this film, because she's the central antagonist. But even still, notice that there are not many distinctive shadows. Even though she's dressed and clad in all black, she's still relatively well lit. So, when we're analysing the lighting and the colour, I think this points to a couple of things. So we can see that the Thor Ragnarok trailer predominantly uses high-key and soft lighting techniques. The stills are all quite evenly lit, and they're dominated by these warm, colourful tones. There aren't any harsh shadows or significant contrasts between light and dark. If we're looking at the colour, there are some very warm colour schemes. So it's dominated by dark green colours, royal blues, golden yellows, and maroon hues. The colours are bright and they're relatively saturated. They're quite intense. And the antagonist Healer has jet black hair, wears a black costume, and dark eyeshadow. However, she's still relatively well lit in most, if not all, of the scenes she's in. So, we've analysed lighting, we've analysed colour, we want to bring that together now to analyse mood. So I've said the warm colour palette and the soft, high-key lighting contributes to the film's exciting, fantastical, and in sort of typical Marvel fashion, even though it's a superhero film and there's lots of drama, it's almost cheerful. There's this sense of optimism in a lot of these Marvel films, which is what sort of gives them the reputation of being more humorous and light-hearted in their interpretation of the superhero genre. So that's the amount of detail, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm looking for in your own analyses. So make sure you go back to this activity and your other activity where you analyse lighting and colour in the opening scene of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and you're using the analysis that I've walked you guys through as a little bit of a guide as to how much detail you should be putting into your own writing. Now, in contrast, let's look at some of the stills from the Batman vs Superman trailer. So we've got our hero here, Superman, arguably the most iconic superhero ever. But notice the way he's lit. One half of his face is well lit, so we can see that's the key light, that's the main source of light in this still. But then the left side of his face is shrouded in shadow. Again, it's a very explicit and deliberate lighting choice. But you can tell from the first still, the lighting and the colour schemes are very, very different in this trailer compared to the Thor Ragnarok trailer. Another still of our superhero Superman, and again, look at the dark shadows. He's obviously backlit, so the background is quite bright compared to the guards who are on their knees, but even look at Superman, it's almost shot from a slight low angle. He looks very menacing for a superhero. He actually looks like a bad guy in this scene. So again, notice the dark, gritty colour palette of DC films. Got our shot of Bruce Wayne here. Again, very dark suit, shadow on the bottom right hand side of his chin and cheekbone. And look at the background, these sort of sickly, deathly greenish blue hues. A high angle shot of Batman. Again, dark colours. This one's slightly more well lit because of the artificial light coming from Batman's eyes, but still quite dark. And finally a shot of, I guess this is the setting of the film, or one of the key locations of the film. A statue of Superman shrouded in darkness. So already you guys should be identifying and acknowledging the distinct differences between the lighting and the colour schemes in the Thor Ragnarok trailer and the Batman vs Superman trailer. So, it's your turn now. Describe the lighting in the Batman vs Superman trailer, describe the colour, and describe the mood. Okie dokie. So I hope this video sort of helped, not only help you revise and review what we've learnt this week in terms of film techniques, but also give you guys a little bit of an indication of how detailed I want your analyses to be. If you have finished all the tasks this week, make sure you go back in light of this video and just try to make sure your responses are as detailed as possible. However, if you have not finished those activities, today is the perfect chance for you guys to catch up and finish those tasks. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I hope this video helps. You have done wonderful work this week and I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend, Year 9s. Bye.